welcome back to the Rise and Align podcast, where we talk about all things high vibrational. We are your hosts. My name is Haley.
And I'm Demi, and we are going to talk about glitches in the matrix. So if you've never heard of this term, it's kind of focused around the concept that we live in a matrix similar to that of the movie The Matrix, where everything is made up of energy, and so it's able to change, sometimes even instantaneously, which might be hard to believe, but there are thousands of stories on the internet talking about quote unquote glitches in the matrix, where things happen that shouldn't normally happen. So with that said, let's get into it.
All right, this is going to be fun. So we are going to be reading some Reddit stories, and I can't wait to hear.
Okay, so the first one I want to read. Before I explain this, I want to talk a little bit about how particles / wavelengths of light are measured, and here's why. So when we want to measure particles or wavelengths of light, we have to decide what we're going to measure it in, and then it shows up as whatever we're choosing to measure it as. So it actually changes the form depending on what we're expecting, which is massive when it comes to like how you believe reality exists. So whatever we expect to show up is the form that's going to show up. And they say because everything is made up of energy, it is measured in wavelengths or particles because it is a form of light that we're seeing. What darkness is just void of the light, right? So it's called mirror glitch. I've never experienced a glitch in the matrix before, but I don't know what else to call this strange thing that happened to me. I have a digital clock in my bathroom, and it's right next to the mirror. Oftentimes, I look at the clock in the mirror instead of turning around to the real clock because it's easier when I'm standing in front of the mirror. I was standing in the mirror and looking at the clock in the mirror, which said 3:07. I quickly glanced at the real clock that was next to me, and it read 3:08. I had a split-second thought about how weird it was that the clock had changed so quickly that it already read 3:08 before I even finished moving my eyes. Because of this thought, I quickly looked back in the mirror, and this is where things got weird. The clock in the mirror said 3:07, and as soon as I looked at it, it changed to 3:08. I stared in disbelief as I frantically looked back and forth between the mirror and its reflection, now both reading 3:08, trying to figure out how the real clock said 3:08 while its reflection was still reading 3:07. I was desperately trying to make sense of what happened, but I couldn't. I genuinely have no way to explain this. As I have thought about it further, I feel as though the time was 3:08 the entire time and the mirror was somehow off. I think that's why it read 3:08 the moment I looked at the real clock, and I think that's why the clock in the mirror immediately changed from 3:07 to 3:08 as soon as I looked at it. I wonder if my thoughts and expectations somehow influenced the mirror image.
That's so good.
Like, the reason I chose this one is because a lot of these, you're like, okay, well, humans have really inaccurate memories, especially when like traumatic things happen. Like you don't know what you remember or not. Like you might be so sure and you're still wrong, right? But if we're creating reality, there's no way to actually say whether you're wrong or not. And in this case, from a quantum physics level, it could totally be true. This could totally be real. Like she could see the light in the mirror reading 3:07 because that's what she expected, and then when she like believed that it was 3:08, she looked back and it changed.
That is so cool also to consider, like in terms of generally speaking in your life, like if you can change how time works if you look at it differently, I think. And you had kind of spoken in prior to reading this story about like how scientists view and how they expect things to look in their experiments and stuff. And I think that we see in the science world, whatever, that different studies contradict each other, or
Yeah.
like this scientist proved this, but this scientist proved the opposite. And I think that it's because like whatever you're looking for, whatever you kind of are wanting the results to be, or where you're focusing your attention in terms of the experiment, like that is what the experiment is going to show you.
Yeah, that's what you're going to find. And it reflects, I think, in all of life. And it all has to do with perspective, right? Which we talk about all the time. So, like, whatever you're choosing to focus on and however you're choosing to perceive something happening in your reality is the way that it's going to look to you. So that's why it's so important to be aware of your subconscious programming, because if you are always perceiving everything from a negative standpoint, it's going to create that. It's going to always be that for you. But when you choose to switch it to a positive standpoint, it's going to create and manifest that. It's going to turn the same scenario into that. And you can see that within humans as well. Like, we could go to a restaurant together and one person would be like, this was a horrible experience, I hated it, it was ugly inside, the food was bad, the waitress was annoying. And somebody else could be like, I thought it was great, I love the decorations. Like, yes, me too. I'm like, I didn't see anything wrong with it, I was having a good time. I don't know, I guess I'm not that hard to please.
We were in different places and different dimensions. I don't know.
Yeah. So speaking of different dimensions, there are so many different dimension stories on here. What I found most interesting when I was like going through this, I went through like the top posts on Reddit from all time. So some of them are years old and then some of them are from today. And also I went on different websites, right? On all of them, there are many stories that are extremely similar. So I find that interesting because it makes me believe that it is more realistic or more possible that these things are a reality if they're happening to so many different people.
And it kind of opens up your mind to like a different way of thinking about life. It's not so like science-based necessarily, like the way a lot of people are trained to look at science,
like solidarity.
Yes. And it just kind of expands your mind a little bit to like not have it be such a beginning and an end to life. Like there's so much more to it.
Yes. Like a lot of people will say like, I am a realist, and I think that they're very grounded in physical, which isn't always bad. However, I think that it does kind of what would be the word opposite of expansion? Like it doesn't really contract your mind. It limits. It puts a limitation on your mind and imagination when God gave us an endless, infinite imagination.
So true.
Yes. So I just I think it's worth being open-minded.
Yeah. And then your life is predictable and it is the same, and it is like there's not room for like new fun crazy things to happen to you.
Yeah, definitely. Okay.
All right. So this one, I think I read one similar to this. I can already kind of tell.
There are a lot.
Yeah. Okay. Pretty sure I slipped in the shower and died. I know this story is going to sound weird and crazy, but hear me out. I'm not too familiar with this subreddit, but a friend of mine who's always talking about metaphysics, Twilight Zone, simulation type stuff, loves this and keeps telling me to post this. In fact, no doubt he'll read this. Anyways, here's my story. 2 weeks ago, I was about to get ready for a party at 6. Just before I started getting ready, one of my friends messaged me, super excited because a boy she had a crush on for the last 4 years finally asked her out, and he was coming with her to the party. While I was texting her back, my younger brother walked into my room and asked if I could drive him to his friend's house, which I agreed to do. Then I went to the bathroom to have a shower and do my makeup. So I got in the shower, but when I went to wash my hair, I realized that my conditioner was finished. I was pretty ticked off because I'd only bought it a couple of days beforehand, and it's an expensive brand. My younger sister always uses up my things, so I knew she'd use it all. She'd also trashed the bathroom, leaving water everywhere and her dirty towel on the floor. I was pissed off and was about to get out of the shower in order to tell her off and get some more conditioner. But as I went to get out, I realized at the last second that she'd kicked the grippy mat we have at the bottom of our shower tub up. So as I went to step out, my foot slipped and I fell with my neck down on the edge of my tub. Time seemed to slow down in my head, and I remember my last thought was, wow, this is how I die. How stupid. But here's the thing. At the moment of impact, I woke up in a start back in my bed. I know it sounds stupid and cheesy, like something from a dumb Netflix show, but there's literally no other way to describe what happened. I was lying in bed right before I got up to shower the first time, but I don't remember falling asleep. And the thing is, I've been a lucid dreamer for the last 5 or so years, and if this was a dream, it was way more vivid than anything I've ever experienced. She also says, what weirded me out was the exact same friend who texted me the first time messaged me after I woke up to tell me that the boy she had a crush on had asked another girl out, and she was pretty bummed out about it and didn't want to come to the party. I was weirded out that there was some similarity between that and the dream, but I didn't think much of it at first. As I went to reply, my younger brother came in to ask if I would take him to his friend's house. All the blood drained from my face. He just stood in the doorway looking confused and asked me what was wrong. I rushed into the bathroom feeling like I was losing my mind and went to check the conditioner bottle. I know this sounds completely crazy, but the bottle was finished just like before, and the grip mat was kicked up. At that point, I went to lie back down in my bed and texted my friends to tell them that I wouldn't be going to the party. Okay, so this is crazy. I don't have like a recollection necessarily of a specific death that I've experienced, quote unquote, but I truly believe that life is like a video game, like how, you know, if your character dies, you go back to like the last checkpoint. Like I believe that to be true because I don't know, that just makes the most sense to me.
Okay,
I believe it.
So I have talked about this quite a few other times. Partially joking, like sometimes I'm like, what if we have died and we just like don't remember and we just like thought it was a dream or something, you know, like what if it has happened and maybe our body feels like the trauma from it or something, but we don't even know about it. Like we wouldn't know, like if there are truly like infinite like multiverses, would we know if we were in a different one?
Right. I don't think so.
I don't know, man. Yeah. I mean, reality, mathematically speaking, is infinite. So who's to say that there isn't such thing, that isn't a thing, that it can't be?
Right.
I personally do recall dying a couple of times. And it's interesting because our subconscious doesn't know the difference between dreams and reality. So the times that I do remember, I chalked it up to a lucid dream. It was very realistic every time. It felt really real to the point where I was like screaming and crying and panicking and like really thought that this was real. And even after waking was like so stressed out that it took a while to like let that go. So I don't know. You know, it's really interesting. I posted a TikTok video about a year ago talking about how I died in my sleep, and I really thought that I did die. It was in a car accident in the back of a car, and like I felt the whole thing happen, and my last thought was, if our thoughts affect others, I just want my son to know how much I love him.
Wow.
Yeah.
I also wonder if that is us connecting to a different dimension, or like just us feeling that trauma of a different version of us in a different dimension too.
Yeah.
Or like when you say you died in one dimension, you like your soul or whatever like moves into a different version of you or something in a different dimension.
Yes. Well, and it's interesting because there are religions that believe in reincarnation, but who's to say that reincarnation can't be within the same lifetime? Like we don't know. We really, nobody knows. Have you died lately? I don't know. Maybe. I don't know.
You don't know. This is a little bit different of a topic too, but I wonder if you can like jump bodies without realizing it, like come into a different person per se, because sometimes I I wake up and I'm like, how do I know that I didn't just go live a whole nother life and then hop in this person's body and just like receive their
And
memories?
yes, and like take on their memories. Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
I don't know. You don't know.
We don't know. Nobody knows. Nobody knows. Like, you can say we're wrong and crazy, but like, you don't know.
Anything's possible.
I don't know.
Literally. And honestly,
that's the only thing I know.
I think that is. I like thinking about life in that way instead of having that finite or like
Yes.
beginning and end.
Yeah. I think that believing that there's an end is much more scary than believing in the infiniteness of what is. And I really like that the laws of physics back those thoughts up more. Yeah.
So true.
It's interesting too because the one that we first read had to do with a mirror, and all the comments on there are talking about how mirrors can be like portals to other dimensions and how there are certain rules about mirrors, and one of the rules is you're not supposed to put mirrors across from each other. I never really got that. I've always loved to see mirrors within mirrors because if you ever have done that intentionally, you look in them and it repeats and repeats and repeats like throughout. It looks like dimensions and it looks really cool. And currently up here we have a mirror across from a mirror. I'm not sure if the camera can show it, but where I'm sitting, I'm looking perfectly into a mirror that is within a mirror. And I'm like, I don't know, should I move them? Please comment below on your thoughts on that.
Yes, for real.
Okay, the next one is going off this same concept of us possibly coming back to life in a different dimension. There are a few like this too, a lot actually. Okay, so this one is titled "He Thinks We Both Died." I'd like to preface this by saying that my husband is an electrical engineer and I'm a teacher. We're not crazy people. So back when my husband and I were dating, my husband was in a terrible car crash. His truck hit black ice and he slid into oncoming traffic. His truck was completely totaled. So was the other truck that he hit. The weird thing is, though, both he and the other guy were completely fine. Not a scratch on them. All my husband had was a bruise on his knee. The first responders were baffled, as was the towing company and the insurance when they realized that no one had died or was severely injured. Fast forward to a few days after the crash, my husband comes over to my apartment. We're having a conversation about a university class that we're both in, and he casually asks when I got the flat screen TV sitting on my dresser. At this point, very confused because I've had the little flat screen since I was 13 and had it the entire year and a bit we'd been dating. I asked him what he's talking about, as I've always had that TV. He told me to quit pulling his leg and asked me what I did with the old tube TV. I had no idea what he was talking about and told him so. He's convinced that I had a tube TV. I proceed to get on Facebook and showed him a picture we had taken 2 weeks prior with the TV in the background. It's a flat screen TV in the picture. My husband goes white, like he's seen a ghost, and just stares into space for a minute. His eyes started to water. I asked him what's wrong, and he said, I swear to God, I'm not crazy. You've had a tube TV since we started dating. It was a tube TV when we took that picture. I brushed it off as his head being rattled from the accident, and he didn't bring it up again. However, anytime we hung out in my room, he'd always look at that TV weird. Fast forward 7 years, my husband and I have been married for a few years and decide that we're ready to be parents. I'm not on birth control, and we decide that whatever happens, happens. We're not actively trying, but not preventing it either. So we're on a vacation in Italy, wandering around Rome, and I feel like shit. I had had my period the week before, and it was the worst one I had in my entire life. As we were walking around, I'm suffering from back pain, chills, and horrific cramping. I go to the bathroom in a cafe and hurl my guts out, have diarrhea, and then realize that I'm menstruating heavily. Obviously, I'm weirded out since I had just had my period the week before. I clean myself up and go back to my husband and tell him that I think I need a doctor. I have a pretty high pain tolerance, but this is insane. It's getting to the point that I'm having trouble walking and starting to feel pain in my shoulders. I don't want to ruin our vacation, but I'm starting to really worry. My husband is smarter than me, sees the state that I'm in, and says I'm visibly paler than what I was when I went into the bathroom and gets me help. 20 minutes later, I'm on a stretcher and being taken to the hospital. An hour after that, I'm being prepped for an emergency surgery as the doctor tells me that I have a ruptured ectopic pregnancy. I have a heavy internal bleeding, and if he doesn't perform surgery, I'm going to die. That is a totally real thing, can confirm. I went to the emergency room thinking that I might have the same thing at one point. So this is that, she did not make that up. 6 hours later, I wake up very sore and tired. The doctor tells me I'm very lucky, and if I had waited any longer to seek medical attention, that I would be dead. Husband stays with me in the hospital the first night and then gets a hotel for the rest of my stay. A week later, we're cleared to fly home, and I go through a grueling month of healing from surgery. 2 months after I return, somehow my husband and I get on the topic of fires, and he goes on about the dangers of kitchen fires, and I say, no need to worry, we're all set with the extinguisher in the closet. He looks at me like I have 3 heads and asks me what I'm talking about. I remind him about the extinguisher in the front closet where we keep the coats. We've had it for 3 years now. He insisted that we buy one when we bought our house. My husband shakes his head and tells me that he has no idea what I'm talking about and that we don't have a fire extinguisher. I remind him about not only the memories of fighting about if we really needed one, where to put it, buying it from Home Depot, and installing it to the wall in the closet. He looks at me with confusion and tells me that none of that happened. I get up, go to the front closet, and show it to him, all while cursing him for being an asshole for forgetting our 2-week fight about it. And lo and behold, no extinguisher. Not only is there no extinguisher, but there's no holes in the wall where I know that we installed it. No fresh paint. This wall has never been touched. I insist that he's moved it and fixed the wall and ask why he would play such a stupid prank on me. He continues to insist that we've never had one, let alone talked about getting one. This goes on for several minutes. I'm approaching hysterics, telling him to quit playing with me when he finally says, now you know how I feel about that TV. We didn't speak about it for a long time. Then after I found this thread, he brought up his theory that perhaps in another timeline, dimension, whatever you want to call it, we both actually did die and we reset like a video game, and the TV and extinguisher are glitches. I don't know if I agree with him. All I know is that I have never been so rattled in my entire life, and every time I get something out of that closet, I'm overwhelmed with this feeling of wrongness. I know it should be there, but somehow it's just not. I can't explain it. He says he will go to his grave swearing that I had a tube TV.
Honestly, that's relatable to me.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of my life is that. I'm like, what are you talking about? That never happened. Or like,
and honestly, like, it happens all the time with people that I know. I'll be like, yeah, don't you remember? Like, we were talking about that the other day. And they'll be like, no. Or like, same with my boyfriend has said multiple things to me in the last month where he's like, yeah, I was just showing you this the other day. And I was like, I don't remember talking about that. You didn't show me that. And he's like, yeah, I did. I'm like, that it happens all the time. And like, yes, humans are imperfect. And yes, we have like really inaccurate memories. But like, I don't know, something like that. It's like, you wouldn't think that you would have a dream about having a 2-week argument about a fire extinguisher. Like, that's a pretty everyday thing, not much of a dream thing.
Yeah, right. The other day, I don't remember what we were talking about, but my fiance said something about like, oh, that's like when your mom had that F-150. And I was like, what are you talking about? My mom never had a truck. He's like, yeah, she did. And he like told me all about it. I was like, my mom did not have a truck. You're crazy. And then I mentioned it to my mom and she's like, oh yeah. And she's like, we had to get rid of it because whatever happened. And I was like, okay. She had it for like a year. No, like, my mom did not drive that. Not in my world.
Yes.
What?
Yes. Like, I swear there are so many things that I've had similar experiences with too, like things that I would swear on and like, nope. I don't know. I don't know.
So that's just relatable to me. And I don't get upset about it. I'm just like, okay.
Yeah. Like, whatever, I guess.
I don't know if that means I'm like, I just keep dying and coming back in a different version of me, but I need to stop getting into trouble then.
Yeah, like I don't know.
It's wild.
Isn't it? Okay, let's see. There was another one that was super similar, but it was really funny. I'll just paraphrase. Um, so this was a post from a boyfriend, and he was talking about how during COVID, his girlfriend started acting like a completely different person. The first thing he noticed was that she started putting sugar in her coffee. And he's like, I know it's super simple and really small, but this is a woman who has preached to me day in and day out how sugar in your coffee is the worst thing ever and how she would never do it and how it ruins coffee.
Mm-hmm.
And he brings it up to her and she's like, what are you talking about? I've always put sugar in my coffee. And he's like, are you kidding me? Like, no, you've yelled at me about it for the last however many years, right? And then she like asked to do like a sex position they've never done. Or no, they tried that hurt her. And so she said she never wanted to do it again. And then one other thing happened, and then she started remembering things about him that he had never done, that never happened, and they like both thought they were going crazy. So the comments on the post are like, check your carbon monoxide, like because they're like, like you guys are, you need to go to a psychologist or something. They're like, yeah, but it's interesting. Like,
so interesting.
did somebody die and come back, or did they both? You know, like,
or like did they like do something to bring themselves into a new dimension, or one of them moved into a new, like,
speaking of which, like, we have our own glitch in the matrix story. I made a TikTok about it last year when it happened to us, and from an outsider's perspective, it just seems like we just got lost in the woods. I would believe that if I didn't take pictures the whole way, and I have an iPhone, so it shows you the location of the pictures, right? So, and it also shows us the map of where we are and everything. So where I parked my car, we were sure that we had like gone straight and then up to the left, and then we were just going to like come back straight and a little bit back to our car, right? So we were just going to make a loop. What happened was, and mind you, on our right side, when we were walking straight through the woods, there was this like massive ravine that we could not have crossed if we wanted to. Like, it would have been really hard. It was really, really steep, and it was like covered in like all of these wood chips and stuff and trees that had been cut down. Like, there is no way that we could have bypassed this and not noticed. Now, our entire walk in the woods was like 45 minutes. Like, we weren't even out there that long. So we walk straight, we walk up this hill to the left, and then we turn to come back. And as we're turning to come back, we see a cabin. And we're like, that's really weird. Like, how could this cabin have popped up? Like, we're not even far from where we started. And prior to parking our car, we had seen this creepy old cabin that we chose not to hike around. Well, we walk up to this cabin, and it's the same cabin. Now, it takes us a hot minute to get back to the car because we're like a mile out of the way somehow within minutes. And so I'm like, this is crazy. We're both like, there's no way that we hiked this far in the wrong direction. We somehow bypassed the massive ravine, and like in minutes, like, how did this happen? Like, this is insane. But mind you, we've been touching weird rocks in the woods all day too. Like,
I was just going to say, like, we were touching moss and rocks. Who knows what? I don't know.
But so I took pictures the whole way of the moss and the rocks and stuff that we're like looking at, right? When we go back to the car, I'm looking at the pictures because I'm like, maybe it'll show us how we got turned around or somehow got sidetracked, even though we both walk in the woods all the time, almost every day, for years and years, our whole lives we lived up here. Like, I've never, ever gotten lost in the woods ever before. I swear to you, I'm really good in the woods, okay? We look at the pictures, and on the map, it shows that we're right. We were going straight, and the last picture I took was up the hill to the left, and the cabin is way the hell over a mile to the right, past this ravine. Mm-hmm. We still have no idea to this day how we got there.
And it was the weirdest vibes. Like, just the energy was so
weird. The cabin was so creepy. The dog was barking her head off at it, even though no one was in it. Like, weird.
It didn't add up. That's all I'm saying.
Everything felt different after that.
Yeah. It took us a while to like get our bearings back too. We were like shaky, freaked out. Like, it was really, it wasn't just getting turned around. It was like you're miles out of the way in minutes, and there's no explanation. And the phone technology is telling you that what you believe to be true is what happened. So how did we end up somewhere else? I don't know. And there's even timestamps on them, right? So it's like,
There's no explanation.
It's true. So next, we have, for a few weeks before this, while out driving, I've observed pedestrians standing at the traffic lights who will reach into their pocket and look at their phone as they're walking across the road. When the light goes green, nothing significant or strange about this, just one of those mundane things you notice while going about your day. Today I was driving with my daughter and we stopped at a red light at a crossing and there was a man standing there. Nothing out of the ordinary, denim jacket, black cap, glasses, 6'2". Oh, I thought I'd try to weird out my young daughter. She's 5, so I knew I was going to blow her mind. So I said, "See that man? When the walking man goes green and he starts to walk across, he'll reach into his pocket and pull out his phone and start looking at it. Watch and see." As he walks across, he reaches into his pocket, but then immediately takes his hand out and looks and points right at me with his mouth open, smiling like a gotcha stance. Of course, my daughter found this absolutely hilarious, and I sat there completely mind blown. I must have sat there in silence, looking at him walk across for the next 10 seconds. I drove on and had a look at him as I drove past, and he was smirking and laughing. I've been playing it through my head all day. The windows were up, the radio was on. I wasn't shouting. My voice was not even remotely raised. He must have been about 15 to 20 feet away from me. I can't figure out at all how he could have heard me. It's literally impossible. How did he know I was trying to predict he'd reach into his pocket or his phone? The only even remote possibility I can think of is that he has had the same observation as me and thought I might be thinking the same thing, so I just went for it. But realistically, what are even the chances of this? I mean, that would have to be some divine time if he was thinking the same thing she was thinking in the same place.
No way. No way. So the only like quote unquote like realistic and logical explanation I can think of is that for some reason this guy was reacting to somebody else somehow at some point and like looking past her or something like that. But it's just weird that it would have happened coincidentally at the exact same time that she expected him to look at his phone,
and he was reaching to.
Yes. And the other thing is I can confirm that I've seen tons of people do that. And I've even done that walking across the street because I think it's kind of like an anxiety thing. Like if there are cars watching you, I feel like when you think other humans are watching you, you don't like want to interact sometimes. So you just look at your phone as like an anxiety thing, right? So it's super common to do that. So I can totally believe that she would have had this like theory like, oh, everyone looks at their phone when they're crossing the street kind of thing. But it is super weird what happened. And I think too like the concept of non something players, like basically background people who are they're not main characters, they're just fake people. It's really interesting to think about that theory. At first I think the first time I heard it I was like, that is crazy and like just not realistic. Like of course other humans are real. But then I came across people talking about a different theory. I forget what it's called, but it basically states that you can't prove that anybody else is conscious in the same way that you are because there's no way that you can perceive reality from anybody else's point of view, which is really an interesting theory. With that said, we can't actually prove that anybody else is like experiencing this reality. It might just be us.
Yeah.
And by us, I mean me, I guess.
A simulation that you're playing that's actually kind of sort of a video game that you like.
You're the only one who's alive.
Yeah.
I don't know. Is that far-fetched? Yes. Could it be true? Yeah, I guess.
I think that human mind also wants to like force something logical out of it. So you're gonna think like, oh, of course he was talking to someone else or whatever, but like I think that who knows, there could be so much more like interesting.
Yes, it's really interesting to talk to people who are like a bit more closed-minded. They think that they're logical, but you'll say something and immediately they'll be like, no, people made that up. But my rational mind can't think of a reason why people would make the things up that they're saying are made up.
Yeah. Sometimes it's like too good. It can't be made up.
Yeah.
And some people, they get mad if you like challenge them on things. They're like,
Yes.
it has to be logical or they can't handle it.
Yes,
Like,
they can't take it.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, not to say that I'm sure the human mind makes mistakes and that some things are not real or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
but also to me, like aliens concept, right? It would be weirder if there's nothing else out there. Is that also possible? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
But like, why do thousands of people, maybe even millions of people, do believe that they're real and have
Mm-hmm.
had experiences with them? Like, why would they make that up?
Right.
To make themselves feel better that we're not alone? Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I'm willing to be open to both concepts
Mm-hmm.
because I don't know.
Yeah.
I
I agree. I think it's even more insane that there wouldn't be more or different beings out there. And they could exist in different dimensions, I think. So maybe they're not in this dimension that we're in right now, too.
Yeah.
So maybe they aren't out there in the sense of being in this dimension, but they're definitely in a different dimension.
Or maybe like if reincarnation is a thing, we reincarnate as what we perceive to be aliens. Like,
yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. I had somebody counter argument that with one thing that did make me think, and it was that if you are Christian or Catholic, or maybe a couple other religions as well, that you believe that we're created in God's image. So if that's true, then, and God is what creates all, then how could there be alien forms? And that's an interesting concept, but to me, I don't see God as having a human form. I think that we're creating God's image in the way that we are creators of our own reality,
Mm-hmm.
as is God, which I don't think is a person. I think it's all that is, personally.
Yeah.
I don't think that there's just like a guy floating around in a cloak up in the
No.
clouds. Like, I think that that's silly. I think that God is all that is and creates all that is. Like, to each their own, and I'm open to other people's, perspectives and beliefs, definitely. But personally, I think that if I'm right, that would allow for there to be other existence.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, again, that's very limiting to be like, God is a male. Like, God
is a man in the sky.
Or, I mean, like, a form of him is a male or whatever. Mm-hmm. But, like, yeah, I just see it so much more as just like an energy. It's more of a feeling. It's yeah.
For sure. More of a, I want to say spirit, but it's like the soul that's within all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I just think it's a lot more than just a person.
Yeah.
Okay, now we're going to pull a card for you. 2 of Swords. So it looks like she is kind of guarding her body with the 2 swords, and then she has a blindfold on, and she's floating. Well, she's not floating, but there's mountains and clouds behind her. It almost gives the appearance that she is. And the moon is above her. The crescent moon is above her.
Okay, that's interesting. So the themes around this card are crossroads, difficult decision, balance of opposites, conflict, denial, courage, indecision, and stalemate. Stalemate? 2 of Swords depicts a blindfolded witch holding 2 crossed swords over her chest. The sword symbolizes, oh my God, I don't know how to read anymore. The swords symbolize the 2 balancing opposites, head and heart, logic and intuition, and the importance of both when making a decision. The waxing moon in the sky symbolizes the growing tension. It is not clear if someone put a scarf over her eyes or if she has intentionally chosen to put the blindfold to avoid making a decision or to protect herself from painful feelings. Regardless of who put the blindfold on her, sooner or later, she will have to make a move. When 2 of Swords appears in a reading, it usually points to a challenging situation in your life in which you are not sure how to proceed. 2 of Swords asks you to remove your blindfold and see things as they truly are. Do the research, carefully weigh the pros and cons, use your intuition, gut instinct, and rationality. Try to find a balance between the 2. 2 of Swords serves as a reminder that many of life's decisions are difficult ones, and they rarely come with clear-cut answers. However, there is no such thing as a wrong choice. It is merely redirection.
Absolutely. If not this, then something better.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's interesting because I was actually brushing my teeth yesterday and I closed my eyes so that I could better feel like, I don't know how the pressure that I was putting, where I was brushing, what it felt like. Because this is a weird thing to share, but when I was taught how to brush my teeth, it was like rather harsh strongly, and so I'd brush my teeth naturally really hard and really fast, and it has worn the enamel on my teeth. So I've been trying to be more mindful about that, and I find that when you close your eyes you can feel more, and that goes for yoga too. Closing your eyes can help you feel deeper into your body and be more mindful of how you feel. So I feel that if you were to um, blindfold yourself to a situation, that you might be able to feel your way through it.
Mm-hmm.
And that might actually be helpful. But also, you don't want to be ignorant in blinding yourself, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that we pulled this card because I think that when like glitches in the matrix happen, you do have to balance your logic and your intuition because yes, like the human mind can be faulty, but also I believe that anything is possible, you
Mm-hmm.
know? And so if you really feel in your heart that something is wrong or something is right, or, you know, feel your way, connect to yourself, because that will give you the truth.
Yeah, that was beautifully said. I
Thank
don't
you.
even have anything to add to that. It was perfect.
All right. With that, thank you so much for joining us. We hope you had so much fun with this episode. It was fun just to ponder the concepts and the crazy things that have happened in other people's realities. Share your stories with us, and please like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.
Bye.
Bye.